Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1774 AN. Today's date is January 24th, 2019, and the title of the episode is, We Just Experienced an Event That Shows Americans Are Not Prepared. We all know the holidays are officially over, and millions of Americans, they've piled an enormous amount of credit card debt over the last couple of months. Now is the time to take control over your financial destiny. Trade Genius will show you how to make money in any market conditions. Here is a trade that made customers almost 13% profit in December on GDXJ. The Trade Genius signal notified a buy at 26 and a sell at 30. Right now through the winter season, you can save over 50% off their bundled specials, or use promo code WINTER for 45% off all non-bundled items. Check out TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Tell them X22 sent you. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, what's very interesting is that there's this entire plan that is moving forward. Now, we don't know the entire plan, because if we knew the entire plan, those who oppose the plan would also know it. This is why we don't know the entire scope of the plan and all the details about the plan. And this is why Q has continually been out there saying, trust the plan, because Q cannot give everyone the entire plan on how they're going to take down the Fed, how they're going to take down the world central bank system, how they're going to arrest the people, and what moves and counter moves they're going to use. But one thing is for sure, and one thing that we do know, because we've been tracking it, we've been following it, is that this economy is based on an illusion. And we've been watching this illusion over many years. And we can see with this illusion, eventually there's going to come a point in time when people are going to have to be prepared. It might not be right now, in this very moment, but when things start to fall apart, when things start to really deteriorate, when we start the transition, people are going to start to realize, maybe I should have been prepared. And it reminds me of people who have been through storms where they say, no, it's not going to be that bad. I'm not going to get batteries. I'm not going to get food. I'm not going to get extra water, because most likely it's going to be absolutely nothing. And then all of a sudden the storm hits and they find out that they're without electric. Stores have no food. They can't find fuel, and there's no water. And this could be through a hurricane. This could be through a winter storm. This could be through anything. And you know what they wished at that time? They wished they prepared. And we are seeing the first indicators that Americans are not prepared for what is coming. And it could be anything that's coming. But if there is an economic problem, this is something you really need to be prepared for. Now, when we look at the economy, and we look at all these statistics, and we look at all these numbers, we know that they're manipulated. We know they're there for a purpose. There's a reason for them, and Trump is using them to go after the central banks and the deep state because he wants to control the narrative. That was the whole point of all of this, is to use their weapon against them to control the narrative. Now, what's very interesting is when we look at initial jobless claims, I mean, they're the lowest that we've ever seen since 1969. I mean, think about that for a second. We have such low employment, which doesn't mean we have good jobs. If these numbers are real, well, a lot of people have part-time jobs, but we know that they're manipulated, and we know they're much lower than they really are. But every time the initial jobless claims reach a certain point where they're very, very low, it indicates we are headed into a recession or a depression. And we've seen this cycle before. It's not something that's new. This was back in the 70s, in 69 to 70, 74 to 75. We've seen it in the 80s. We've seen it in the 90s. We've seen it in 2000. We've seen it in 2008. And we're seeing it again. It's something that we've seen over and over and over again. So what is this indicator that is showing us that the American people are not prepared for what is coming? Well, we're in this shutdown. Think about all those people that work for the government. They have families. They're living off a paycheck, just like everyone else. And then all of a sudden, which they could never expect to happen, the shutdown hit. And people are like, all right, we've been through this before. It will blow over in 2 or 3 weeks. Not a big deal. Well, there are certain families, certain people that are struggling right now because they were living paycheck to paycheck. And maybe they didn't have that much in savings. And the government shutdown right now is highlighting just how much Americans rely on others as opposed to themselves, and how little they have saved for an emergency, or how little they prepared for an emergency. Now again, being prepared is something you do to protect yourself and your family for a certain event. And this could be a storm. This could be an earthquake. This could be an economic disaster. It could be war. It doesn't matter. And you're never going to know when it's going to hit exactly and how damaging it's going to be. So right now, the government shutdown is perfectly proving that Americans are not prepared for a financial disaster of any kind, let alone an economic recession. The shutdown is proving just how little government actually does and just how financially illiterate many Americans have allowed themselves to become. Now, I'm not blaming this on anyone. Don't blame yourselves. The system was actually set up to hurt you. The system was created to keep you in debt. This is a central bank system. And they keep telling you, get a credit card. Because think about it. They're not telling you, oh, you know what? Be financially independent. Buy gold, buy silver. Stock up on food, water. Don't take out loans. They're not telling you that. They're saying, hey, take out a loan for college. Hey, take out a loan for a car. Hey, take out a loan for a house. You want to buy groceries you can't afford them? Don't worry, there's a credit card. What? You want this product? Don't worry, there's a credit card if you don't make enough money. And a lot of Americans don't make enough money. So what do? They have to resort to credit. This was part of the central bank's plan. 60% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings for a rainy day fund or for an immediate emergency. And it's been about 10 years since the Great Recession. Now, we know we've been living in this illusion. So it's been 10 years since they started the illusion, and we're still in this illusion. But the recession left many Americans jobless with no money, or a lot of Americans with a part-time job instead of a full-time job. The government shutdown serves as a painful warning and a preview for what will happen once unemployment rises from 50-year lows. Americans are far too dependent on others, including the government. Remember, this is what the deep state wanted. They wanted everyone dependent on the government. Why? Because it's easier to control the population when you're dependent on the government. And we're also dependent on the central bank system. They need to create currency or the entire system dies. The government needs to borrow or the entire system dies. Look how they created and developed this whole thing. The people are dependent on the government. The vast majority of the people in this country. The government is dependent on the Federal Reserve, the central bank. Because without the central bank, the government can't borrow. Without the government borrowing, well, they can't make people dependent on them. So where is the problem? It goes right back to the central bank. But my point is that this government shutdown is just giving us a window into what it would be like if the vast majority of people received no paychecks. If the American people weren't able to go to the store and purchase food. This is showing us that if credit breaks down, remember, credit is part of the central bank system. If it breaks down like it did back in 2008, if it breaks down, supplies to the stores would cease and halt. How would you survive during this period, during this transition? Now, to get out of this central bank system, we need to move into a different system. That period is the transition. where they're making preparations to move everything. Remember, Q has been telling us that gold will bring down the Fed. They also understand that there's going to be a structure type of change. What it's exactly going to be, we don't know. I do believe that they'll be taking over the central bank and eventually destroy the central bank. And if they do this, we have to remember one thing that's very important. Most of Americans, yes, they have jewelry, but they haven't been stacking gold or silver. So they have to come up with a different plan to make it so it's not so hard on every single person. Can they make it perfect? No. People are going to get hurt. The value of a central bank dollar will probably go to zero or very close to that. People will lose part of their wealth. People will have a difficult time during this period. I mean, if we look back to Germany, if we look back to the Soviet Union, if we look back to Argentina, yes, there were food lines. If we look back to the Great Depression here in the United States, back then, at least people had farms. Yes, the inner city people, they had a tough time. They had to go outside of the city to get a job, get food, and make it. Today, it's a lot worse. Everyone is just living paycheck to paycheck. Hardly any farmers. There are many people that depend on the government, depend on going to the supermarket every single day to get their food. If that all comes to an end for a certain period of time, you need to think to yourself, how would I survive? Then you need to think, well, once the transition's complete and I lose, my wealth or part of my wealth or half of my wealth, how will I make that up? And this is all about being independent. This is all about being prepared. This is all about protecting your family and yourself for when tough times hit. Because just like a storm, everyone around you who did not prepare, you can't go to them and have them help you. And most of Americans, if we look today, just at what is happening with the government shutdown, you can see that most people, they're struggling. Now, if this hits on a broader scale, where we go through this transition and we get out of the central bank system, it's going to be quite rough. So we can see already from this first indicator, this is a wake-up call. This is the universe whispering in your ear, protect yourself. Now, you can either go out and purchase, crates of freeze-dried food, or you can go to Sam's Club, Costco, and buy canned food. It's a lot cheaper, but whatever you can do, you should be doing this. If you need to get junk silver or gold, stack a little bit. You don't have to do a lot. I know for many people, it's very, very difficult. It doesn't mean you have to get a whole silver dollar. You can get a half a silver dollar. You can get a tenth of silver. Same thing with gold. You don't have to get the full silver dollar. Same thing with food. You can stack up and get beans. You can get peanut butter. You can get toiletry. And every time you go shopping, pick up an extra jar of peanut butter. A lot of fat, a lot of protein. Pick up beans, a lot of protein. You can pick up an extra roll of toilet paper. Just so you start preparing. Now, those people that have been preparing, they shouldn't stop. They should be rotating, all their food, unless they got, food that stays for 25 years or 10 years or whatever. But you should be rotating that food. And you should be prepared in that way. And you should continue to prepare, because there might be someone at one time knocking on your door saying, listen, do you have anything to help my family? And you'll be like, you know what? Thank God I have extra food. I can help them out. So this is showing us, and this is letting us know that we all need to be prepared and ready for anything. And we should never really be dependent on government, on central bank, or anything else. We should depend on ourselves. Depend on ourselves to be prepared and ready for any situation. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.